Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons.
All right, so let's everybody just get grounded, get nice and comfortable, and just notice where your breath is right now. Focus on that space right where your nostrils begin. Just notice your breath going in through your nose, down into your diaphragm, expanding your diaphragm, and coming right back out. Just notice where your breath is. You might notice your breath getting a little deeper, a little slower, a little lighter, maybe even less frequent. Let's just pay attention to what is always paying attention to us. The universe is sending us the gift of life to all 100 trillion cells in our body, breath to breath. So the more we pay attention to this miracle, the more we reap the benefits of this miracle. Just pay close attention to your breath. Now, we're just going to do a quick coherent breathing, 5 cycles, 4 count in, 4 count out. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Last one, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Now notice where your breath is. Notice the energy flowing through every space in your body. Notice how the universe is completing itself through you and as you. Breath to breath. Now you can open your eyes or just come back into the space from conscious breathing back to regular unconscious breathing. And here we are, grounded at the men's meeting with Doug. Thank you guys for letting me facilitate. Thank you for letting me help you tap in to what is true and real, you being a perfect reflection of the Most High, perfect reflection of the universe. And let us just be. So it is.
Thanks, Toussaint. That was great. Thanks, guys, for coming in together again, hanging out with me. I enjoy the companionship, I tell you. So hopefully you saw in the message through the week I talked about we don't have to, but we might talk about things that we do to increase our intuition, improve it, tap into it, any kind of variants of that. If you want to talk about that or anything like that, like anyone want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first, Doug.
Where you go, Phil?
For me, it's I think it's like building a muscle. It's got to be, a regular practice. And for me, it's about getting quiet. And everyone's space is different to the next person in being able to achieve, what you regard as quiet. And I like to turn everything off and just tune in to just natural sounds like birds in the trees, the wind in the trees, things like that. Just feeling the breeze on the face, closing my eyes, and thinking about nothing until a thought will come in. And that's how, I tend, for me, to get to that place where I find it's easier to intuit amid the noise of the rest of the day.
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I just see John's just joined in. And John, just to give you a heads up where we're at, today we're talking roughly around the subject of what things we do individually to develop our intuition, to tap into it, to recognize it, that sort of thing. So welcome. Charles, yeah, I was just going to say, with you having to go, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I find that, there's many voices and roommates up in the head. And there's those that are like the self-saboteurs and, that we don't want in our head that get really loud at times. And I used to try to, exile those voices from my head, and that didn't work well. They come back with a vengeance and, and could swing off the pendulum of, extremes a lot. And actually, teach a process for integrating all those voices in the head. And it's three really simple aspects. And one is just to name it. And it can be a fun exercise. Like, my first voice in my head that got me in a lot of trouble, I call him Pac-Man. And he's like the over consumer, like Frank the Tank. He's like, oh, we go out for a drink with the guys. Yeah, let's go. And we'll have one drink. And then it turns into like 3 and 4. And it's this voice that's just like more is better. And just continues down a path of like, bad decisions until I wake up the next day dealing with the consequences of my own actions and letting Pac-Man drive the ship. Right. So the second key is like giving it a persona, like a visual character, like Pac-Man. It's easy to visualize. So I know when he's like trying to take the wheel. And then the third piece is understanding that voice in our head, their purpose, right? Like these aspects of our psyche want just like humans, like want to be heard, want to be seen, want to be validated and understood for their importance. And so, like for Pac-Man, for instance, I actually have grown to love that aspect of my psyche because he's just wants to make sure that I don't miss out on all the juicy stuff in life, And so I can admire that and improving this relationship with that part of my psyche and ego has allowed me to have those internal dialogues, conversations with Pac-Man when he wants to order another drink. It's like, hey, why don't we enjoy this drink like it's our last, and imagine we're a food connoisseur and we get to enjoy like every, flavor and aroma and texture as if we're going to write a novel about it. And Pac-Man's like, more enjoyment? Awesome. So he takes the back seat. Then my higher self is driving more often and gotten to know many of these characters. I have an inner rebel. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. I call him the Tasmanian devil. He's not big on rules and statutes and mandates. But anyway, that getting to know those voices has been really helpful to differentiate, that of my intuition and higher self. And it's usually like the quieter voice of, it's like it's not the loud ones of the ego that have all these needs and wants and desires. It's more of the calm, just a very simple voice. And it also comes with a feeling for me. And it's usually like a feeling of expansiveness or excitement. And so I can feel it as a sensation in my body, and I'm familiar with that feeling. And, if I'm having trouble accessing my intuition, I have a whole alignment activation that I even offer for free on my website when people subscribe at charlesclay.coach. It is amazing for clearing any energy that's been blocking or stuck or anything you picked up that's not yours. I call it 3D debris. It's like weight that we carry from unprocessed emotions or other people's energy. And it's a great practice for just clearing out that energy, offering it to Mother Earth so she can compost it, transmute it into higher vibrational frequencies and creations of life. And it's a sequence of movement, breath work, and meditation, visualization. And usually, within that 22-minute alignment activation, I can usually receive the answers and get a good solid hit from my intuition after that energy hygiene practice. So those have been some really powerful and valuable tools for me and a lot of my clients.
Thanks, Charles. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, hearing that inner voice, Phil, back to getting back into nature, like just getting away from the human-made distractions and just letting the natural sounds. Yeah, that's beautiful. Anyone else? Hands up, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Doug. And thank you, Phil. And thank you also with Charles. Those were, got to get quiet to hear the signal. And then it takes some practice to differentiate between the signal, which is more feeling and knowing, as opposed to the noise, which is a lot of that chatter. And I kind of took a hack approach or a brute force approach where I learned how to self-muscle test. And I came across research that about 95 to 98% of our thoughts on any given day are going to be a version of something we've thought before. It's going to be some type of a repeat. And then about 85% of our thoughts on any given day are going to trend towards negative. So I came across this info, and I'm just had this epiphany of like, why am I listening to anything going on up here if that's kind of the stack that I'm dealing with, where it's going to be a usual pattern or something negative. So I just kind of took that out of the equation, and I started to muscle test what I was strong and weak to, which really incorporates and encapsulates a lot of what both Philip and Charles shared, where the only way to get accurate testing is to get balanced in the mind-body state, come back to a balanced hemisphere instead of a reactive dominant hemisphere state. So you got to get quiet in the body. And then a lot of it was open inquiry. So I started testing everything, and some people would say to excess, where I was testing what shirt I wanted to wear, what I wanted to eat for lunch, what show I was going to watch, where we were going to go for dinner, because I was open and curious. I didn't have a dog in the fight. I was just really interested in what my system was saying. So as I'm getting these strong and weak responses using my entire physiology, after getting balanced and grounded and quiet on the inside, what I recognized in retrospect, what I was doing is training my intuition. And it started shortening the distance between having a thought or a musing or just something I was chewing on, whether it was in relationships or work or personal professional life. And what I started to see was the gap between asking the question and connecting with that knowing started to really shorten until it got to the point where some other things happened, but then kind of that additional layer of intuition started coming in with getting clairvoyant messages, getting hits, starting to incorporate that with client work, messages that are specific to situations that I really don't have any insight into that I share with someone, and it's spot on. And so it's all part and parcel. It's all there for all of us. And so for everyone listening, I just want to make clear that intuition, it's not a magic trick. It's not only reserved for certain people. It's part of our natural operating system. Just like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, mediumship, remote viewing, we're actually all precognitive. Our heart, from the Heart Math Institute, they've shown that our heart will have a response to a stimulus up to 4 seconds before it's shown to us. So we are absolute magic. And I love that we're getting to this place of conversation where we're able to share the notes and to share what works for us and spread the field. And so the more we can offer and share, the more that there's there to be picked up and run with it. So I just love that all of us are coming at the same, similar equation from slightly different angles, and every one of us is offering that piece of the puzzle that anybody can use to strengthen their own intuition.
Yeah, it's good. It's powerful. A couple of hours ago, I had two pre-podcast calls with a couple of guys, and I was sort of wondering how they were going to go, because you're talking about having these conversations now. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to suss out whether these guys really are onto the money with intuition or not, you know. And mate, they blew me away, because I'd heard them on other podcasts and they were okay, but there was nothing, there was no hint that they were running at a higher level and they were tapping into stuff. And then I had these 25-minute calls with each of them this morning, and it was like, I was shocked. I was like, that as soon as I hinted at anything to do with intuition, they were like, oh yeah, and they were jumping on air. And one of them, because he knew, he said recently, I listened to one of your podcasts with Charles Clay, and then I've halfway listened through one of your men's roundtables, and I'm like, and so he was on it, like, and I was just, as Kevin just said, you know, like it is happy that we can now start to have these conversations with men, and it all starts to make sense. And we're all coming at it slightly different angles, but we're all heading the same way, you know, like it's beautiful. Yeah. Toussaint.
Yes, yes. Man, this is getting really good. I love this format. Intuition. What do I do to strengthen it and to allow it to flow through me? I really feel like the intuition is a gateway to your highest self, right? And I think to keep that gateway clear, to keep it open, what I do is I intentionally have like a 6-prong practice that I do every day, and that I teach to my clients in my Back to Whole Self-Care Academy. It's really just sort of a blueprint of how I live my life, about an hour-long practice. But I do started off with nervous system regulation techniques for about 5 minutes, just to tap into where I'm at emotionally and just to sit with it, right? And then breath work. I've been a breath work practitioner for about 3 years. That definitely grounds me, and just allows me to get quiet, but also to tap into that constant miracle of the breath, to this greater appreciation for what is being served to me, right? Constantly, whether I know it or not. Then I get into body weight strength training, moving my body, developing muscle, burning fat, allowing my metabolism to go, sweating, right? That's about 15 to 30 minutes a day. And then after that, I get into yogic flexibility for about 15 minutes. And then from there, I get into some deep transcendental meditation. I've had a transcendental meditation practice for about the last year and a half. I've been teaching meditation for about 3 years, but I really like the TM piece because it has a mantra as well. And that has been really amazing, getting quiet. And then so many things just bubble up. And I feel like, you know, I'm just attracting what I'm supposed to be doing. It feels free. I feel freed up. And then I have a whole food plant-based nutrition practice. I firmly believe that you are what you eat. And I believe energy, the highest vibration of energy you can receive, is through plants. And I believe plants actually speak to you on a cellular level, on an atomic level, and they allow you to stay in connection with your intuition, because we're naturally herbivore, right? And so when we don't impede on our nature, then I believe our intuition is protected, right? And so doing all of these things intentionally as a discipline allow me to stay freed up and tap in to what already is, right? And our intuition is always ready to move through you and give you everything that you need in every single moment. You just allow it to bubble up. And so it allows me to stay freed up. My practice allows me to stay freed up, and not trying so much, as opposed to, I'm just more like receiving, I feel like my antenna is receiving the frequency that's a match to the frequency that I already am. So it's like I'm paying attention, and I'm tending to my own vibration through my practice, and then that frequency picks up on a direct match, right? And so that intuition just comes through, based off of really honestly where my frequency is. So I try to keep my frequency pretty clear intentionally every day through my practice. And then yeah, I find myself pretty connected daily, you know. And I think the biggest piece that I've added to it over the last year is really the nervous system regulation piece. Being able to sit with my emotions without bypassing them through meditation to feel good, or through breath work to feel good, or through working out to feel good, or through jogging to feel good. It's not just about feeling good, but it's about feeling, right? Being able to feel, to understand that, yes, my body knows exactly how to process everything that is happening. I don't have to run to my breath work, or run to get some food in my stomach to, no, that's just bypassing. I can sit, still, and feel my emotions, which is really, really, really important. And after adding that piece, I felt like, wow, this is, this is where it's at for me. Because I think sometimes we get caught up into trying to escape our emotions, when in reality, our emotions are teachers. They're giving us divine messages. And there's some intuition attached to that. If we can sit still and feel these emotions, then we can develop some direction, some guidance, and just get curious without trying to find the answer so much, right? Just get curious and accept where you are emotionally. And then bam, when you go into your other practices, you can turn the volume down on your emotions. You don't have to necessarily identify completely with what's going on in your head or your heart all the time. Just get curious, accept, and continue to develop this discipline to know that you'll attract everything you need by, just being able to be in reception mode, So that's pretty much my practice right there.
Awesome. Thanks, Toussaint. That's we're getting a good variety. And I tell you something through the week, something I was thinking about this group. I love it. There's a lot of testosterone in the room, but we are all like very gentlemanlike. We're not out to step on anyone else's toes or have our ego or boast. We're just all complimenting each other so well. I just love it. Yeah, it's great.
Toussaint, I know you're a father. You have an hour-long routine. Do you have like a Jedi 2-minute version of it too? With kids, all the chaos.
Well, that's a good question. For me, I have me and my wife work really well together. And so when I'm like, babe, I need to go do some TM right now. Can I get 20 minutes? She's like, okay, honey, just go in the back. It's all good. I'm like, thank you. So we communicate a lot around, and oftentimes I'll get up before them and I do my practice from like 5 to like 5:45, 5:55, and they're still asleep. So that's really how I take care of myself. And I also do things on my lunch break too. I'm a school teacher too. So I do breath work with my students in the morning, my sixth graders, and so I incorporate it in no matter what. And oftentimes, if I can't do my whole holistic practice within one setting, I'll sprinkle it throughout the day, right? And so, sometimes I'll get, 5 minutes of breath work here, 5 minutes of meditation here, a 10-minute jog, or, some air squats whatever I need to do in that moment, or then just sitting and just noticing, because life is going to happen, right? Especially if you're a school teacher or if you're a parent, life is going to happen. Your children are going to trigger you. Your wife might trigger you, the whole nine. And so being able to sit, this is why we do what we do, so we can receive these triggers and receive this life that happens to us without resistance, right? I don't want to be in resistance mode, because I don't want to block my teachers, which are my emotions, and which are what happens in life, right? And so when I can receive it and know that everything happening to me is actually happening for me, then everything is completely shifted into this mindset of gratitude. Like, oh, wow, what is this here to teach me? Let me get curious. Let me not tell myself what the lesson is. Let me just receive what I need to receive and allow my body to process it. Because all the wisdom you have, all the wisdom you need is really in your body. It's happening in real time, right? Just don't resist it. There's no need for resistance, right? And so, yeah, and it's taken me a long time to come to that conclusion, because I've had a lot of resistance in my life, So being at this state right now where I don't resist anything anymore. It's just more like, wow, this is really cool. So it's really allowed me to stay grounded. And I'm able to communicate to my family when I need time to actually leave the room for 20 minutes, as opposed to holding it in. Oh, it's all good, baby. I got it. I don't need to do that. I need to communicate, you know, So,
yeah, I love that.
So yeah.
It's good to have a Jedi version to sprinkle in throughout the day that, that
Absolutely.
can make more of life a meditation. And I love, Kevin, that you use muscle testing. I do as well. I'm curious which version you use. I use the single, finger test. Yep. And
The bridge.
And
yep.
that I'm curious how many others use muscle testing here, because that's been a game changer for me too. I literally went through my huge stash of supplements that I had and found out that 70% of them were actually making me weak. And they're superfoods and all these amazing, adaptogenic herbs and stuff that's been proven by studies that it's really good for you. But based on everybody's different constitution, what's going on in your environment, your emotions, everything, it's good to have that tool to see if it's actually making us stronger or weaker. And it's the same thing with our thoughts. So it's a great tool. Glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
So-
it's funny. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Kevin or Charles, would one of you like to quickly, I know the answer, but could quickly explain about muscle testing for people listening on how it works, what it does?
Yeah, it's there's a number of different ways to do it, but you can essentially, the first key is to get out of your mind, kind of you can drop into the intelligence within your body. I take it, we call it that 12-inch elevator ride from the mind to the heart space. And then it's a listening, and you can ask your body's intelligence for a yes. And this can be, if you're just standing up straight, you might feel like a lean forward a little bit, and that can be your yes, like the strong signal. Or you might ask for a no, and you might lean a little bit backwards. There's a lot of people use this version where you make a ring, and then you're pushing through with one finger, and if it breaks it easily, then that's weak, and if it holds strong, then that's strong. I like just the single. There's just putting one finger on top of my index finger, just to this finger stays straight, the index finger, and then on the top middle finger, I'm just applying pressure. And if it goes kind of limp and weak real easily, then I know that's a no. My body's that's making whatever it is I'm putting close to my body or I'm thinking about is weaker than strong. Whereas if I grab a supplement, keep it close to my body, and then test, and it feels nice and strong, like a good neural lock, the fingers hold strong, then that's a strong yes. It's this actually is helping me and making me stronger. It is an incredible tool, and the more you practice it, the better you can get. like anything. You know, first time is kind of like hard to get out of your head. But after you practice it a while, you can really trust that intelligence within your body. And it is a game changer. I remember I went into my dad's, you know, cupboard when he was battling cancer. And I was like, all right, Dad, you've become like the ultimate biohacker. And we have all these amazing supplements and then his medications. And we went through all his subs. And about, you know, 20% of them were making him weak. And then we got to his pharmaceutical medications. And those were like super weak. Like his arm just went womp, womp, womp. I was like, your body doesn't like these, Dad. And so he cut him out. And you know, the doctors said he had stage 4 lung cancer and then he had 2 months to live. And I remember that call when he told me that. I said, Dad, do you want to beat this? And he said, you're damn right I do. And I said, good, then don't listen to a word those doctors said, because we're going to get you on everything that's already helping cure cancer naturally and cutting out everything that's aggravating it, putting gasoline on the fire. We got him an infrared sauna, taught him the Garrison Institute protocol and green juicing and cutting out sugar and all the things. We turned 2 months into 2 years. And in that 2 years, it was like some incredible memories and just vivid experiences I got to have with my father, knowing that, you know, it could be any time now. And I got to share everything that he meant to me on my heart in that 2 years. So it's a game changer. And it's sad to me that with the system, you know, with pharmaceuticals and like doctors, we put them on such this pedestal where it's like a lot of people would hear that you have 2 months to live and they take that to heart. And if that's their belief that this doctor's right, then that becomes like their self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? So it's pretty wild how our beliefs are regulating our reality in every moment. So it's a whole nother conversation, but thought it was worth sharing.
Kevin, did you want to share?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. And it really encapsulates and incorporates everything that's been shared so far, where if we're not in a balanced brain state, we're not going to get accurate testing. If we're in a stress response, we're not going to get accurate testing. If we're distracted, if we're racing mind, we're not going to get accurate testing. So and we created a course, a self-muscle testing course that's available on our website, where it's live support weekly, and it's 18 modules of learning how to calibrate, which Charles had mentioned, where you test variables that are known. So in order to test if you're accurate, there's steps that you can take with known aspects where you can make sure you're testing accurately before you step into the inquiry. And then sometimes we're inquiring or we're asking about things that are they're triggering. They hit an emotional response within, and we can get what we call neurologically disorganized, where we shift back into that stress response, and we're not going to be testing accurately again. And it incorporates the quiet mind state, it incorporates the positive physiological disruptions, it incorporates all of these aspects that it's the value add. You know, it's this value add that just keeps the benefit flow going. So yeah, I mean, nothing much more to add to Charles other than practice. And I think Philip or somebody mentioned it, where it's just anything is a muscle. Negative thought patterns, it doesn't just occur. It's taken a long time to get to that place. So we can start to shift that playing field with positively disrupting, and we actually call it playing catch and release during the day. So increasing that self-awareness throughout the day. So if we catch a response or reaction, then we've got tools to be able to disrupt it. And Charles, you asked if there's the Jedi trick. I don't have anything that can distill down everything Toussaint shared that is absolutely amazing into that 30 seconds. But I guide clients with, I call it a bellows breath, or break glass in case of emergency breath, where we blow it out real quick. We incorporate that with a hook upper whole brain posture. So we're balancing the physiological, the electromagnetic system. And then you float a question and turn your thinker off. So it's this real intense short burst of disruption. And then you ask a question quietly to yourself, to whatever we perceive as our source or our guidance, whatever that hyper-personal label or pronoun is. And then stop thinking, and you just see what comes in. And if anybody's looking for a quick hit way to start that's listening, that's a really good way to do it, where you blow it out with some breath work, get clear in the mind, get balanced in the body, ask a question, then turn the thinker off and just see what comes in. And what it is starting to pick up that direct line that we used to have on lock when we were young, because we're all connected to that source really strongly, until the programming and conditioning of life and surviving in the three-dimensional space really takes precedent. And so it's relearning that communication. So sometimes it'll come through as in a scene. Sometimes it'll come through as colors, shapes, a feeling. Sometimes it can be a little cinematic, like Bumblebee and the Transformers, where it'll come through in song lyrics. It'll come through in a movie scene. And it really depends on what resonates with us. And so staying open and curious is really for me, that's such a huge component, as well as everything else that's been shared as well. And I got to share, Charles, interestingly enough, like muscle testing was my main move. That was like, and I was super efficient in session with client, like bing, bang, boom. And then I think this was about two holiday seasons ago now, 2 Christmases ago. My sway test is still fine, but my finger testing started almost like a tank on empty, started kind of sputter out. And I was starting to freak out. I was like, this is like the most efficient way that I can get to working with people. What am I supposed to do? And my wife, she gets some knowings as well. And she got this hit, and it was, I'm still in process and practice with it, but she said, those are your training wheels. You don't need those anymore. Just no. And it was like on this new cliff's edge of like, that was my life vest. That was my bungee cord. That was my rip cord. All right, forget it. I'm just jumping. And so I've been practicing kind of that next step in the evolution of that connection with the intuition. And it's an ever evolving process. I think that's important to know. Like, there's no place you get to where it's like, yeah, I got the intuition. There's always an additional tool, additional layer of shortening that gap, and just really, and as Toussaint said it, connecting with that higher knowing, connecting with that source message, and it makes everything in life easier. Once we stay open and curious, get out of thinking we know, be open to what resonates, getting, like we call them truth bumps, where you get a knowing and it just gives you this flush, tells you you're going in the right direction. Kind of like for those of us of a certain age, where in the world is in Carmen Sandiego's henchmen, when they come out, when you're on the right path, you're going to get those signs. So pick up the tools, start practicing, and see what's there for you.
The force is strong with you, young Jedi.
Beautiful. All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of what was said around what Kevin said around that, tap to what we always knew as young children, right? One of the best things about having young children at the age of 51, I have a 3-year-old going on 4, and I have a 1-year-old going on 2. Like, as me and my wife have begun to do this work of deconditioning ourselves from things that we've been through and regulating our nervous systems and all of these breakthroughs we've been having simultaneously together, individually, as a relationship, all this stuff. And we're really on this path of like giving our children this red carpet of like not being suppressed by our triggers, or not being suppressed by things that are by our trauma, not passing that trauma down. All right. We have some of the most unsuppressed children in the world. I mean, they can scream and yell and come right back to happy, because they are, they have this innate permission to just be. And we're born with this innate permission to be, to flourish, to be the crystal that you were designed to be. We lose that in some capacity growing up. And so watching them gives me like, I'm so excited to just watch them develop, because the more I'm aware of my conditioning and this going through this deconditioning process is so beautiful. And I have to come back again to the nervous system regulation techniques of breath work, of yoga. There is a dark side to wellness, to holistic wellness, in that when you're coming back to whole, everything that wasn't addressed, all the trauma, all that stuff is going to come up to be met, to be, how can you say, to be reckoned with, right? The body keeps the score, right? And so in that, there's going to be things that come up, emotions that come up that you're like, what is this? Oh my God. And we're going to rush to want to identify with what's going on in our head. We have this tendency to put a narrative on whatever emotion that comes up. The best thing about this process is that you don't need to find a narrative. Just receive the emotion as a teacher, allow it to come up, thank the emotion, and say, I appreciate whatever you're here to teach me, whatever I needed to learn from you. I am ready, I am open, and I am willing. And to be able to coexist with it and allow it to be released, right? Emotions, stored emotions that haven't been dealt with, that haven't been processed, the suppressed emotions, the repressed emotions, the trauma, all of that stuff is just trying to come up and be reckoned with so you can be completely free like you always have been, right? And so anybody listening to this, all of the work that you do, the breath work, the yoga, all of it will trigger things to come up, right? And you might feel like, what the fuck is going on with me? It's okay. You don't have to apply a narrative to it. Just feel it. Your goal is to feel, not to always feel good, but to feel and to honor all of these stored emotions that have been frozen in you. And when you get thawed out through your wellness, then all of a sudden you get so free and you're just sitting up here like, man, and you don't have to identify. I mean, there might be a narrative attached to something that is just crystal clear, but if you're searching for this narrative, that's where you can get in trouble and go down a rabbit hole. And it's unnecessary because I've done so much work on myself where I'm just feeling certain way. I'm just like, well, okay, there's some stuff coming up, right? Because we develop these survival mechanisms within our own families, within our own communities that naturally suppress who we truly are, right? So we don't have to identify with what is coming up to where, oh my God, this must be because of this. No, just thank the emotion, thank the energy coming up, and allow it to be released, and to allow, honor it and allow it to be released. I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people that I find in this community of people who doing wellness, they oftentimes unconsciously bypass with these tools. And the whole idea is that these tools are supposed to teach you how to stay grounded and to appreciate everything that is coming up, not to bypass, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to put out there, you guys. I know I took a lot of time. I apologize.
No worries. Andrew, did you want to say something?
I just want to acknowledge that you're sitting there looking at someone who for too long in his life has felt the need to manage everything, every bit of energy, every situation, every thought, judgment, right, wrong, just Toussaint, I'm aware of what you're talking about, and it's a shift that I've tried to take for some time now. I'm better at it, but by gee, our habits die really hard, and particularly when I find when you've got people around you who maybe have expectations on how you might react to something, and if you don't, align with their narrative, that can bring a third dynamic into it, which is really quite interesting. But just want to say thank you for describing it in the manner that you've had, because it's the journey that I've been on. Thank you.
Guys,
Thanks,
I gotta
Tucker.
hop off pretty soon, but I wanted to piggyback on that. I love this conversation around emotions are messengers, are teachers, And when we don't get the message or we try to resist, boy, it just becomes issues in our tissues. And it'll keep getting poked and prodded and triggered until we do finally feel it. It can't outrun the emotions. And I have a intuitive prompt, before I leave that I think might really keep this interesting. I'd love to hear from some of you, like an actual experience where you were battling between the fear of the mind and your intuition, and either a story of like where the fear won and you went that route and the consequences of that, or when you were able to listen to your intuition over the fear and make a move in that direction, and what happened. And I have just a minute. I can leave with one story, that's very practical from my family. We were in the Bay, and after 18 years in California, I never thought I'd say this. And I woke up and told my wife, and she's pregnant with our first baby, I said, you know what? I feel totally complete with California. And I love the ocean, but I feel like we'd just done it all. Like we had done everything we were supposed to there. And luckily she felt the same way. And so she felt this intuitive hit that something was going to go down in the Bay. We didn't know if it was like fires or earthquake or something was going to happen, and that we shouldn't wait around for making this decision. So we tuned in, and what was our highest excitement? And, we looked at Utah, her folks are there, and then we ended up, really the ace in the hole was Austin, Texas. And so as soon as we started looking into it, became friends with a realtor here and told him, hey, we're looking to rent, but if we found the perfect house, we'd buy it. And he's like, found us the perfect house, gave us the virtual tour. We put it under contract, flew out, saw it, checked all the boxes, and pretty much it was like jumping through a portal. We were in Cabo San Lucas celebrating my birthday while our stuff was being moved here to Texas to our house. And that was in February 2020, right before the pandemic. And so we landed here, got home, and thank God we were in Texas and not California, just based on how everything was handled through those few years. And it was just one of those like strong intuitive hits that guided us. And thank God we said yes to it. And since we've seen so many of our friends fly, come out here from California as well. And it's just been quite a just insane amount of visionaries and leaders and incredible people in this industry that are out here doing big things in Texas. So that would be my story as I sign off. Love to hear the rest of your guys's too. I'm sure you guys have some good ones. And just sending you guys lots of love. I appreciate these conversations. Appreciate each and every one of you and getting to connect in this way. So have a grateful day. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Charles. See you.
Peace.
Eric or John, either, no pressure to talk, but if either of you are interested in sharing something.
Yeah, first, previous question or the new one?
Anything.
I just want to add first for like the intuition. Like everyone has great stuff. Everyone's talking about the secret sauce, talking about awareness, notice, about the clairs, firing all cylinders. But I think one of my things that I like to do is I think is very critical is the trust. You got trust in it. And I think I don't know who said it about it's not always about being right, because you can become really self-critical, So I think as you're aware, inner awareness, outer awareness, being open, like me, I'm always open, but you're open with discernment at the same time. And as I continue to trust yourself, and I'm not talking about the big situations, don't think it has to be like this disastrous time where you got to use your intuition. No, it's like the little things that happens. Like, you know what, maybe, I don't know, I think I should fill my vehicle up because I have a feeling like something might not work right or whatever. It's like these little confirmers that you need to build that trust. Like everyone talked about repetition, a muscle, but I also think also physical health too. I think the overall wellness. You can call it spiritual intelligence, body intelligence, emotional intelligence, all the aspects of that, and learn a lot about the heart math. That's very important to understand that the emotions and data is information that is given to us, but no, just to go along, I think trust is very important. And Remember that it's not about always being right. It's all about learning and growing with intuition. Because I feel like you're always going to constantly evolve. There's always going to be challenges and obstacles that it's going to it's like working out. It's like your next rep, your next set. Like there's going to be, you know, some tension there, but it's building.
Excellent. And there's one, I think I've got one that none of you have got. Start a podcast and talk to people about intuition. Because every week it's just pouring through your brain, and it's just like I'm constantly listening to podcasts about it. I'm studying it. It's on my mind all the time. But yet, a little disclaimer, I was talking to someone this morning about it. As much as I talk about it, I do understand it's just one tool in a toolbox. And Phil's got his Phil the Builder t-shirt on. So just pretend we're all carpenters, and I'd come across a new tool. And I said to Phil, hey, I just found this new tool. And he goes, I've seen one of them. That's something that women use, like when they're sewing. And I went, yeah, I know that. That's all right. Just hang in there, buddy. I know you've been a builder for 40 years and it's all, you're doing tough stuff. He goes, mate, if I take that on the construction site, they're going to laugh at me. I'm going, hang on. Let's go over here. Let's have a look at what this tool will do. Look, I just saved, if we did this, it'll save you half an hour of labor every day. Every day. You know, that's 2.5 hours a week. Saved labor. You're going to use less materials. You're going to make less mistakes. And the end product actually looks 5 to 10% better. Wow. And you're like, oh, okay. Can you get me one of them in black instead of, you know, bright orange? Yeah, I'll get you one in black. No worries at all. And but I still recognize it's just a tool. Phil's got 75 other tools in the back of his, you know, trailer, pickup truck, whatever he's got there. And now he's got this extra tool, and it's a relatively important one. He uses it in cognito with his others, and away it goes. So it's just a tool, but I flood myself with it, and I love what it is. It's my niche. So yeah, there's one that I know you guys sitting here right now, none of you have your own podcast that just talks about intuition all day. So that's one of my little secrets, that because I'm just sucking the life out of everyone I interview, and I'm just taking all their energy in, and I'm like an intuition, you know, leech, like just taking it all in. So yeah, all right.
Yeah, I haven't been the same since I talked to you.
You haven't been the same since you talked to me. I hope you're better.
No, I just want to add, Doug. It's great to see everyone talking about the different paths that we have to wellness, and especially seeing the nervous system talked about, because it really controls how we feel. How we feel is everything. And it was mentioned that our emotions are teachers. Well, to me, emotions are part of our consciousness, but focused, right? So, you know my story. I healed completely from a stroke. I was able to heal the childhood trauma that I had, which was extreme. But more importantly, I learned to use the cellular energy that we have that no one talks about. And I was able to identify it scientifically and identify the energy that each of our cells are producing, whether they're in our brain or in our bodies themselves. And so I actually saw what we must do to connect with this energy. And someone mentioned ourselves. Well, you know, we don't have them, we are them. You know, so what we can do to connect to ourselves that have so much energy that we don't have words nor numbers to really adequately describe who we really are. And the fact to hear that everyone talk about, so many talk about, you know, the thoughts in that hours, and to think that's absolutely true. And then these would be things that we would not have talked about in this way even 5 short years ago. So to see this amount of growth, and to see you as the facilitator of this, and to be able to have but a small part in it, you know, to me it's worth my time, and I really value my time. And tonight I just came in to really just sit and absorb, because I've created my own system where we can tap into this energy. Yeah, we're talking about that energy that we can't see, the gamma and the UV and the X-rays, and that's real energy. We know how to tap into it now. We know what we must do. Part of it is becoming regulated. We talked about the nervous system, but more importantly, understand how our brain works. Because if our brain wave is caught in a certain state because of what happened to us at any time in life, if we're caught in that high brainwave state, or we call it high beta, I don't want to get too scientific, but if we're trapped in that state, it doesn't matter what we do, we'll always bounce back to that. So feeding and understanding the brain and the different energy that's going through it, because we are energy, and this is a very powerful part of who we are. This energy that's going through our brain, and it's working at different levels, or different vibrations, different brain waves, which we can positively identify, then it's absolutely imperative that we understand how they work and how they work in conjunction with our nervous system, and why we have to get that brain wave level down to a certain level, at least the low beta or anywhere in the alpha state. We must absolutely get there to have any lasting changes. And what I'm doing now is just coming up with a way that we can identify, where we start, measure the progress that we're making, and seeing the brain waves literally come down, and showing individuals how they can measure the progress in their nervous system as well. So, yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing, and to see so many sharing so much absolutely fantastic information. It's a beautiful thing. I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Out of curiosity, we've been on for exactly this is our fourth. The last three have all been around an hour. I don't need to shut it down right now or anything like that. Anyone want to share something else, or where are we at?
Yeah, Doug, it sort of feeds on what we're saying, and before Charlie left, what he was saying about fear and intuition. I find fear comes from imagination. It comes from our thinking, whereas the intuition with me is a feeling. I've learnt to trust my intuition more than my fear, which is, thinking related to an experience or something I've heard or watched, and the fear that might create. I've learnt that when that situation may arrive, and I've got a good example here, it's nothing like the fear that I imagined. And one situation was like, because I paddled ocean marathons for a long time, is one of my greatest fears are sharks. So one day I was surfing off a beach about an hour and a half north of Sydney, and I just looked to my right as I went to paddle into the wave, and here's an 8-foot bronze whaler right beside me, and he was looking at me, and all I could think of was how pretty it looked. And the fear that I had, there was no fear. I was just as relaxed as we are now with each other. And it wasn't until I got onto the beach and stood up with my board under my arm that the hair went up on my arms, compared to, I had to go to a funeral last week, and my ex-wife and her husband were there, and I really didn't want to go, but I was taking my daughter because she had no way of getting transport there. And anyway, the stress that I felt and the intuition that I had about going, the feeling that created within me stimulated my vagus nerve enough that my heart rate dropped to 28 beats a minute. And I was sitting in my car and I felt lightheaded. My daughter was sitting next to me waiting to go into the funeral. And I thought, I'm not going to say anything to her. She'll panic. I took my pulse at 28 beats a minute, text my doctor. He rang me straight back, actually, and he said, get to a hospital, get an ECG and get your bloods done. That's way too low. But for everyone that doesn't know me, I'm an endurance athlete, and my heart rate is usually 44 beats a minute resting anyway. But my intuition of that feeling so what wasn't a fear, and I'm having now, I find, as my intuition ability for it strengthens, I'm having almost like a physical reaction from my intuition. And and it's becoming stronger. Just like when you might walk past a fish and chip shop, and you've had been on a really good diet, your nutrition is A grade for months, and you think, oh God, how good is those fish and chips smelling, and so you can't help yourself, and you go and get them, right? And the next day you feel crook, you feel physically sick, right? The stronger my intuition gets now, and my wife gets it. Annika will say, I don't have a good feeling about this or a good feeling about that. She will actually physically feel it. And it's like the longer you're with someone, they actually rub off on you like that, because I'm getting it now. I get very quiet around people where I get a bad vibe. I just become very quiet, as opposed to people that I just feel a good vibe around. I can just be myself and talk. And that's how it is for me, the fear compared to like intuition with respect to feeling.
Yeah, that's great. You've recognized that. And that's what it's all about for all of us. It's just recognizing how it works for us, what happens, and then using that as like a baseline for and those baselines will change over time. Like Kevin with his muscle testing, he had his favorite little way to hold his fingers, and then it stopped working. It was broke because he'd moved beyond it.
Dog, there's a Dr. David Hawkins who wrote extensively about the muscle testing. I believe it's applied kinesiology is what he called it, as opposed to kinesiology, which is the study of the muscles themselves. So he wrote the Map of Consciousness Explained, and he wrote a book, Power versus Force. So, and I can't remember in which one. He gives a detailed explanation of how it works. And they literally tested hundreds, I think 200,000 or 300,000 patients to come up with the different scores or how the muscles work. They did a lot of testing, but there's a real science behind it. But of course, mainstream will not accept it as valid.
Yeah, I love David Hawkins' books. I've read probably, I think, 3 of them. He's got quite a lot of books out. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, yes.
Excellent. Anyone else want to share anything particular?
I'm just so grateful, for everything that's contributed, Doug, in this group. I learned so much, and it makes me realise that I'm not out there, that I'm normal, because, I couldn't speak to, regular mates about things like we've discussed. They'd think, what's he smoking? But so I feel that, we're sort of peas in a pod here. It's good. And the more I listen, the more I learn. It's great.
Excellent. Yeah, beautiful. Andrew, you want to share?
Yeah, very, very briefly. Some of you guys are aware that I'm partway through a bit of a personal health journey. I'll share that it's clearly a nerve pain issue that I have, and but yet haven't been able to get to the to the source of it. And what's been interesting for me is that interacting with all these different doctors, where you're right up against traditional medicine, and because I'm, it's saying this, Doug might agree, but one of the, even though I've got lots of things that I'm not very good at, one of the things I got given a long time ago was an ability to use intuition or read people, and it's been a bit of an interesting journey interacting with very clever people. These people are highly educated, but I've had everything from pure connection, with a specialist where you can see they're trying their hardest to understand and listen, and not just going immediately to a default solution. And I've had the other end where, you're not feeling, they're not even listening to what I'm saying. So it's been really interesting. I'm trying to approach from a body spirit, soul approach. So whilst having to interact with traditional medicine, I'm also doing all the other things that I need to do, including meditation and a range of other bits in terms of trying to be kind to myself. One thing I have struggled with, and it's I thank Philip for raising the whole fear versus intuition thing, because that is a real thing for me. A real thing for me where I'm constantly having to check myself about whether I'm just creating a narrative in my mind and letting myself go there without any real reason to do that. And I think, Doug, you mentioned earlier about this, our minds, they can ruminate and just go back onto things. So it's probably the first time in my life where I've had a chronic issue. So this is a bit new to me. Most of I've been fortunate. I'm 58, and apart from some injuries which I caused myself, like crush injuries on my foot and things like that through diving. Most of it has been pretty good, but this is a little bit different, and this certainly is been very tough for me from a mind space and emotionally. So, and today, listening to all of you, I have, I am a copious notes taker. All of you have given me something, and I honour and appreciate that. Thanks, Doug. And let me show you one thing. This is Doug's. This is one of Doug's T-shirts from when he ran his resort on Cosray in Micronesia. And I've got to tell you, Doug, that this shirt would now be, I reckon, coming up on 10, 15 years old, and it is still one of my favourite house shirts because it's a good cotton shirt. It feels great on, but yes, you can see I'm starting to wear it out because it's been washed so many times. But just want to acknowledge it's a bit of Doug's history and the great things he did for that society on Cosray.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've worn all mine out, mate. They went from the good shirts to the yard shirts to the rag bag. Unfortunately, I've worn them all out. Yeah, excellent. And that's great. And I love what you just said, Andrew. It just shows the variety of people we have here coming together and how we're just all helping, complementing. We're all where we're at, and where we're at is perfect. It's just where we need to be. And my podcast that came out yesterday, it's the lady that I interviewed. And guys, I'm always trying to interview guys, but I had this lady that I came across, and I just asked, I'm thinking, geez, I hope she lets me interview her. And she did. And she opened my eyes up to a whole new world. And like, there's lots of stuff she says I don't get, but she's got her own podcast, couple of books out, and it's just opened my eyes to so much. And I just realized that where we are right now is where we're meant to be, and everything is as it should be. I used to strive for newer, bigger, better, stronger, perfection, take away everything that wasn't right. And I just realized that everything is awesome, that we're, just life is awesome. Those who I used to think should be assassinated and removed from this planet for the betterment of humanity, I now think that they're doing what they're doing because they're making us make hard choices sometimes. They're making us use our intuition to improve our lives, to see past what is not necessarily the best for humanity or for me individually. And I thank them for it. They're putting up some resistance. They're putting out some stuff I don't enjoy. And I'm now able to evolve into a better person that I wouldn't have had an interest or an inkling to head down that path before. So yeah, excellent. All right. Well, is that a wrap, or does anyone else want to chime in?
I gotta head on out, but thank you guys. Thank you for this conversation. You know, that's what we need to plug in every now and then. And it was awesome for me to get back in the groove of things. But everyone had awesome advice. Thank you very much for having me, Doug. Thank you, brother.
Pleasure. Thanks, Eric. All right, John, Eric, Philip, Kevin, Andrew are still here, and Toussaint and Charles have already headed off with their families doing stuff. Thank you. Talk to you all again in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.